Hello there, Jonathan Avid again. Guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do one of those illustrious top 10 movies of 2019 lists that everybody's doing now. I figured I might as well jump on the bandwagon because I've seen some movies this year that I really love that I am not hearing people reference in their top 10 lists. So I want to bring attention to a lot of these movies. I don't want to talk too much about movies that a lot of critics have, or a lot of people in general have already talked about on YouTube. So let's start off with this because this is the most fun section. I got three films here, three dishonorable mentions because I haven't really seen any bad movies this year, like movies that I outright hated. However, these movies were utter disappointments. The first one is Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, whatever the hell it is. I like this movie just fine. You know, it's a good movie. However, it's one of those ridiculous movies that the more you think about it, the more embarrassing it is, especially from a script standpoint. There are so many plot holes, and guys like Angry Joe and other critics that are better than me online have already broken it down literally in hour-long, 2-hour, God knows how long videos. But in general, I think it's like, if I was to rate it, I'd give like a 5 out of 10, maybe a 4 out of 10, because it's one of those movies, I don't think I'm ever going to watch it again. I have no real interest in seeing it again, you know, and it sort of makes me look back on The Last Jedi with like rose-tinted glasses, where I'm like, oh, okay, like that movie seems, even though I outright hated that movie and still do kind of hate the movie, however, I can look back at that movie from 2 years ago and go, at least that made me passionate about Star Wars again, whereas this is just like forgettable nonsense. I mean, and there's so much happening throughout the film, I felt like I was going crazy. Anyhow, moving on, this next film is another Disney scam. It's The Lion King. This movie was complete trash. I mean, Beyonce alone, like one of the worst performances of the year. I mean, just like, and this whole cast, I mean, even hearing James Earl Jones again as, what is it, Mustafa or Mufasa, whatever the hell the main lion's name is. I mean, I was never the biggest fan of The Lion King. I think there are better Disney movies out there. I think it's a classic for sure, though. But this remake, I mean, what a pointless diversion. And the fact that they were trying to pass it off as live action, give me a fucking break. If you actually used real animals to do this, then yeah, that would be live action. But the fact that they're all fucking CGI, I mean, it's just laughable. The fact that they tried to pass it off as live action, you know, like, give me a break. The movie's an embarrassment. I mean, such a shame, such a money grab, and yeah, fuck Disney for doing this and continuing to do these remakes, because as bad as some of them are, I haven't seen Aladdin, but at least that has some originality put into it. Like, it's not literally just cut and paste The Lion King just with CGI masked over it. I mean, what a terrible fucking idea. Just terrible. Give it like a 2 out of 10, and that's me being nice. And the last film, the worst film I saw of 2019, was actually one of the first I saw in 2019, if not the very first new 2019 release that I saw in January or February. I forget when it came out, but it's called Glass. This movie, quite possibly one of the most disappointing movies I've ever seen. It's literally mind-boggling how you fuck up a movie. It's one of the worst movies of the decade, in my opinion. M. Night Shyamalan completely rose like in status to me again as a director and writer with Split. Like, James McAvoy in that was brilliant, I thought, and you know, like and I love, of course, the twist that it's connected to Unbreakable at the end of that. I thought that was brilliant. However, you watch this film and you just go completely nuts. And when the best part of your movie is literally a deleted scene from your first movie, better movie, Unbreakable, which is still my favorite M. Night movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So the fact that this movie treats these characters from that movie, which I love so much, and this movie's so bad, it makes me look at Split like I hate that movie now. You know, like I can't go back and watch Split because I know what the hell it leads to. It leads to this nonsense. And I do not understand how the hell some people can just praise this movie. I mean, sure, the cinematography is good. Some of the performances are good. But overall, I mean, like, it's so hard to put into words for me how disappointing this film is. I haven't had a disappointing film experience like this since The Last Jedi. And yet I wasn't even looking forward to that film per se, because I was already in Star Wars overload mode between Force Awakens and Rogue One were out at that time before then. But this film, I mean, I was genuinely excited for it. It was my most anticipated movie of 2019, like way above Endgame, because I was kind of worried about how Endgame would resolve everything. Yet I should have been more worried about how this resolved everything, because it just seemed like M. Night made this as cheaply as he possibly could. And Audrey, he made this as cheap as he possibly could just to get a lot back in the box office, because he saw how much Split made at the box office, like probably 150 or 250 million dollars worldwide, we're talking, on a like $15 million budget. And he makes Glass for like around 10 to 15 million, maybe 20 million. And you can tell, I mean, like, even though the cinematography is good in certain scenes, the fact that it's filmed entirely, almost entirely, at this like institute or whatever, like inside this building, is just like, oh, it's so fucking lazy and money grubbing. And I fucking hate M. Night Shyamalan for completely dropping the ball on this. You could have given this movie, this idea, this pitch to any other fucking writer and director, and they would have done a million times better than this nonsense. With these actors, like Bruce Willis finally like giving a performance where he actually seems to care, because he's good in this movie, but he's not even the main character. Like, it's more so the James McAvoy show, and this is quite possibly his worst performance, his most annoying performance. I don't recall like ever disliking James McAvoy as much as I did in this film. Like, he's so annoying, to where Split, like, there was like an even amount of each personality. In this, it's mainly just the kid personality, because in Split everybody loved the kid personality, like for the scene where he's dancing and stuff like that. But that movie worked because it was suspenseful. And you know, that's still a good movie on its own. But when you mash it up with this, like, I mean, this is just night and day. This is terrible. This is a real bad movie, like really bad. I don't care how nice the cinematography is. I don't care how good these actors are. This movie fucking sucks. Fuck you. This is the worst fucking movie I saw in all of 2019. This movie can go fuck itself, and so can M. Night Shyamalan. I think I may have given this a 2 out of 10 before, but fuck, I'm giving this a 1 out of 10. This is one of the worst movies I've seen. One of the most disappointing fucking movies I've ever seen, and I'm fired up now. Out of that, we got those 3 shitty movies out of the way, and it only took me 5 hours to talk about them. Let's talk about some honorable mentions really quick, because I got quite a lot of these. First one is Joker. This is making a lot of top 10, top 5 lists from YouTubers that I've seen. I really like this movie. I give it like either a 7 or an 8 out of 10. I'm not really sturdy on my rating for this film. Mainly because I feel like, in hindsight, if I go to watch the film again, it'll mainly be for that final act. Like, basically, like, as soon as he becomes the Joker, as soon as he gets the idea to paint himself up, is when I feel that the movie finally ramps up. Like, it gets really tense and suspenseful and enthralling once it gets to those scenes. I had a lot of problems with the film, like the whole subplot involving Zoe Beetz, the supporting actress in this film. Like, her whole character, I mean, I understand the reason for her being there, but I kind of wish, you know, they didn't do the twist that they did, because I sort of saw it coming and I was sort of going, they're not going to do this, right? Like, I mean, that would just be so stupid if they did, but they did it, and it's just rolling my eyes into the back of my head like, come on, you can't be serious here. But and some of the sound mixing too, like the way the sound is cut together, I mean, it's so weird in some scenes, like especially the stair sequence. Like they're playing that one song, I don't know what the hell the song's called, but it's playing, and then halfway through the stair scene, when he's dancing down the stairs, it cuts to the score from the movie itself, and it's so weird, you know. It's so poorly edited in the sound department, and it feels like, at least to me. Was I the only one to feel that way? I don't know. And another scene I have as an example of how poor the sound editing is was the train scene. I mean, when I saw this in theaters, at certain points in this train scene, like the first one involving the three Wall Street idiots, I couldn't hear what the fuck they were talking about half the time. I was going, huh? What? Like, was that, like, meant to be that way? It's like, I forget if it was the music that was too loud or if it was, like, the train itself. I mean, the movie's out on DVD now. I've seen scenes of it on YouTube, or I guess it is. I mean, it is Oscars season, so, like, all these leaks are starting to come out and shit, but, keep it short and sweet. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is great in this. I don't think he's going to win Best Actor for it. I would be shocked at this point if he does, especially with all the great contenders we got this year. But I think he really elevates this movie into something special, because if he wasn't on fire in this movie, this would be like a 5 out of 10 at best. I mean, because really, like, the best scene in this film is the scene between him and Robert De Niro at the end, like on the talk show. That's the most intense scene. That might be my favorite scene in any comic book movie, in all honesty. And I love the fact that Todd Phillips doesn't even consider this a comic book movie, because I've wanted to see movies like this in the comic book genre for so long now, where they don't feel like they have to idol worship the comic book material. I mean, this is not a straight up like taking of The Killing Joke, for instance, and like turning that into like, say, for instance, what Zack Snyder did with Watchmen. This isn't like that. This is more so of like almost like a direct remake of Taxi Driver or The King of Comedy, which I haven't seen in a while. I'm going to watch that movie real soon. But yeah, Joker, either a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Still a really fantastic movie, and I totally understand the praise for it. Next movie, we got a real good one, really underrated one that I want to talk about here. It's called Avengement with Scott Adkins. Now, I hadn't seen a lot of action movies this year, and I noticed that, so I wanted to watch an action movie, and I think this guy on YouTube, his name is Rossatron or whatnot, he recommended this movie called Avengement as his best action movie of the year, because I wasn't really interested in John Wick 3. Like, I saw Alita Battle Angel, and that had some really fantastic action scenes. Actually, that's a movie that also could be added on here. I thought that movie was wonderful as an honorable mention. But Avengement with Scott Adkins, he is at his best in this movie, and I think a lot of people like have really brushed this under the rug and brushed him under the rug as a action star, where I think they shouldn't. This guy's the real deal. He does his own stunts, and he proves in this movie like that he is a really capable actor. I really bought his performance here from the first sight of his face that you see in this movie. Like, he's got this really rugged, like, grilled up face in this movie, and it's just, you immediately, like, I didn't recognize him at first. I'm like, that's Scott Adkins, right? Like, and I saw the footage of it that Rossatron showed, and I was blown away. This movie, it's not the most original story, but it's told effectively. Now, like, I'd give this movie a 9 out of 10 because it is kind of typical territory. That was my biggest problem with it, is that it's typical territory. And there's also one scene where this lady gets run over by a car, and it's one of the fakest car hits I've ever seen in a movie. In fact, they don't even show it to you, obviously to be tasteful, but also, obviously, because they don't want to film the stunt with this said older lady. Like, and I could see why. I mean, it's supposed to be a very emotional moment in the movie. However, I just felt like that impact of the car hitting her could have been done better, because the way it's shot, it looks like the car like just like slows down enough to like bring her maybe up to the hood, and then she'd slide off and that'd be it. But like the way they show it, it seems like the car should be going like 90 or 100 miles an hour or something like that, and like basically slam into her so that she's like embedded into the windshield. However, that's not the case. It's like on this secluded street where people are going like 30 or 40. And it's just like, I'm not buying the fact that she gets killed in this scene. I'm sorry, I'm not. Like, unless the guy was speeding down the street and drunk, like, but then Scott Adkins' character, he gets blamed for it, like right away. Like the cops like pick him up. So I felt that scene kind of took me out of the experience. But other than that, like the whole finale, like the final fight in this movie is fantastic, and the action scenes in general are really phenomenal. It reminded me a lot of the Vince Vaughn movie from a couple years back called Brawl in Cell Block 99. That movie had some really bone-crunching, brutal, phenomenal action sequences throughout, and this film's no exception. So check out Avengement. I give it a 9 out of 10. Next film, El Camino. I love this one as well. This is another honorable mention. Aaron Paul, just phenomenal in this film. I think he's so phenomenal in this film that, you know, I'm surprised not more people are talking about giving him an Oscar nomination for it. And I'm shocked that he didn't even get a Golden Globe nomination for this performance, because I feel this is one of the top 10 performances of the year, quite honestly. I mean, it's so subtle, and like you just, like, even if you didn't watch Breaking Bad through its entirety, like if you know enough about it, you feel yourself really rooting for this guy. Like it's a very simple sort of story. Like it's almost like biblical, like Jesus, like a sort of like a fall and rise again sort of story. Like and there's a lot of like subtle, like nuanced imagery throughout of like lone wolves and stuff like that. And yeah, I can't praise Aaron Paul's performance enough of this. It was nice to see Robert Forster in his final performance here as well. I mean, it's just so sad that we lost him this year, because he was so great on Twin Peaks: The Return, as well as Sheriff Truman. I'm really going to miss him as an actor. And like as a phenomenal actor, very underrated actor, but a wonderful man it seemed as well. So rest in peace, Robert Forster. And like El Camino as a movie, I mean, every actor in this is brilliant. I love the villain in this. I forget his name, but you know, like he has this great voice. Like I want to hear this guy like do more like voice work, or just be in more movies in general. Like I really wish I remembered the character's name, but like he's basically like the guy who's in the showdown with Jesse at the end of the movie. And like while I could see a lot of people going like, "Oh, this doesn't make sense. Why would he get into this like Western style gunslinging showdown with this guy at the end?" I love the fact that the guy's so cocky that like he gets into this predicament, you know, and like it really, like it's a really fantastic movie, a really fun time, and a great way to finally put an end to Breaking Bad. Because as much as I loved the finale, I mean, like for Breaking Bad, when it comes to Breaking Bad, this might be like my favorite of the series, like my favorite episode of the series, just because it's such good closure. I mean, that finale was so great in of itself, but this there's just something so, like, it's so wonderful, the fact that people actually cared about Jesse's character, and that these creators actually cared about Jesse as a character enough to give him this movie, this wonderful goodbye. You know, and instead of making it like just a mini series, they decided, you know what, let's just make this a movie, because we know it's kind of unnecessary per se, but like it's so well done. and it feels genuinely like a movie that you would want to watch in theaters. Like there are beautiful shots of like overhead when he's searching through the apartment for the money. Like it looks like he's a rat in a cage. I mean, it just phenomenal, mind-boggling cinematography and a brilliant performance at the heart of it. And Jesse Plemons he's like the blonde guy. He looks like a bigger version of Matt Damon. He's great in this. It's fantastic to see him back as Todd, if I recall. Todd, yeah, I think his name is Todd on the show and in this movie. It was great seeing him back as a sort of lingering antagonist sort of presence for Jesse to sort of look back on and like sort of shiver throughout the movie. And it gives you shivers too, like with how he treats Jesse like a dog. And it's so heartbreaking to see Jesse go through all that again, like to re-experience that again. But it really puts you in the mindset, and like I can't praise this movie enough. I don't want to go on too long, but El Camino, I think I'd give this one a 9 out of 10. If not even, hell, even a 10 out of 10. I mean, the more I think about this movie, and I'll have to watch it again at some point in the future. I almost want to watch it again now after I've talked about it for so long. I mean, I really just, I love this movie, and it is definitely the way in which you do a movie, like where a TV series came before it. Like this is how you do a movie. I think this is even better than Serenity, like a movie like that. Or I can't think of too many other movies that like were like basically after a TV series. But this is the best one that I could think of. And kudos to everybody behind this, from Vince Gilligan to Aaron Paul especially. Like I'm really shocked that he isn't getting more awards recognition for this. I mean, he's gotten some, like I think some Emmys or whatnot, nominations at least, but yeah, this guy just blew me away here. I mean, he is a really phenomenal actor, and I think he needs to be in more movies, period. All right, next movie, we got Hustlers. This movie came out of nowhere for me. It's one of the most underrated films of the year. I almost didn't see it because of some of the controversy, like basically people had a problem with Cardi B. It turned out like she revealed that she was a stripper, and she was basically doing what these people, like this is based off a true story. It's basically revealed, or like she told the press that, oh, basically she would drug people and steal their money, but she'd only do it off of wealthy Wall Street guys. So like she sort of had that slant to it, like that excuse for it. And it like that sort of off-put me, but the fact that people were willing to write this movie off because of her involvement in it is just embarrassing to me, because she's only in the movie for a mere minute or two, maybe 3 at most. I mean, it's hardly a role, and she basically plays herself. Like you're almost meant to hate her, especially on her initial introduction. And the movie shocked me in that I was expecting it to just be like a straight up like comedy about these women stealing money from these guys. Actually, I didn't even know the premise, in all honesty. I didn't even know this was based off a true story, and I was wondering why the hell Jennifer Lopez was getting all this praise for Best Supporting Actress. And after seeing this movie, I'm shocked that this main actress, Constance Wu, I believe is her name, I'm surprised she's not getting more consideration for Best Actress here, because she's got an even tougher role than Jennifer Lopez here. Whereas Jennifer Lopez gets to like sort of in a way like be herself. Like it isn't a tough performance per se, but it's a really great performance nonetheless. And Jennifer Lopez is really great here. But Constance Wu, I think a lot of people are writing off her performance when she's got some really like emotional scenes to work through. Like she's got to cry on screen, and she clearly does in a lot, like just under a handful of scenes. You clearly tell like she's doing what her character on paper is supposed to be doing, whether it be cry, like, you know, do this or that, blah blah blah. And she, like, in my opinion, I think she's even better than Jennifer Lopez in this film. As great as J-Lo is here, like, I really think this lead actress isn't getting enough credit here, and I really think she's the reason why this movie holds together for a lot of people, including myself. I was genuinely shocked by this movie. It really impressed me, and it's movies like these that really took me by surprise this year and made me consider this to be one of the best years in film that I've ever experienced, because like there wasn't really a bad movie that I saw. There was a disappointing movie like Star Wars or Glass, but those movies are a dime a dozen, you know? Like if you build up hype for something, you know, the descent downwards is easier than up. So Hustlers, I mean, I was genuinely shocked to say this, but I'll say it again. This is a 10 out of 10 movie for me. I was genuinely shocked with how I felt about it by the end of it. I think this is up there. It shares a lot in common with The Wolf of Wall Street and Magic Mike. It's almost like a blend of those two movies, except you've got women in the leads and here. And with all the talk of like the lack of like female representation or whatever in movies, I mean, if you're one of those advocates and you don't sing the praises of a movie like this, or don't go and seek out a movie like this to enjoy, then I feel like that's a shame on you. And yeah, you should maybe fold your cards in that case. Anyhow, moving on, because I don't want to get too much into that mumbo jumbo crap. It's all about the movies here. Let's jump onto a very charming movie here, a lot less depressing by the end, because it's not a true story, obviously. This is a kid's film, and it's Toy Story 4. Like, a lot of these films I'm looking at, so many of them were so close to cutting it, like, on the top 10 for me. But I felt the need to mention these films because I love all of these films that I'm mentioning here. Toy Story 4, this is probably the movie that made me cry the most this year. Like, I genuinely was shocked with how much I was, like, just like waterworks, just making my shirt wet, soaking wet with all the tears I was crying in this. I mean, just a beautiful film. It might just be my favorite of the Toy Story films. I kind of hope they do stop it here, because it's sort of how I felt like after the third movie. Like I was just so emotional by the end of that, as well as this, to where I was like, okay, I hope number 3 is the end. However, this one feels like the definitive end. There's something that happens at the end which really shocked me and really led to my reaction. Like, even thinking about it now, like, really makes me like, it's just such a positive message for kids. I mean, there's a reason why Pixar, they make the best movies for kids. I mean, and this is a prime example. This is a movie I had no anticipation for. I had no drive to see it. I literally just one day rented it and went like, whatever, I'm gonna watch Toy Story 4, and I was genuinely moved by it. Like, it's one of the best of the year. This is another 10 out of 10 film. This is classic. This is a classic film. And I think people that just write this off as another Pixar film, like, they are so full of it, and they need to grow a heart, because those people are fucking morons. Anyhow, next movie we're talking about here is another true story film, just like Hustlers. It's called The Report. And this is a brilliant movie. At one point, like, between this and Marriage Story, I mean, this is Adam Driver's year. And after seeing this movie and Marriage Story, I really believe that Adam Driver deserves to win Best Actor. Personally, like, even though I haven't seen Pain and Glory yet, I kind of am rooting for Antonio Banderas to win Best Actor, just because I love Antonio, and it'd be awesome to see a man like him win, or like a guy like Adam Sandler, Eddie Murphy. Everybody seems to be rooting for Joaquin Phoenix, and initially I was too. But after seeing the amount of great movies that I've seen from this year, I mean, it just, like, it's amazing the amount of really impressive movies we got this year. Because last year we had some really great ones too, but I feel like this year, for the amount of movies I saw, which was about like between 40 to 50 or so, I was genuinely shocked with the amount of like 10 out of 10 scores I was giving to these films. Like, and some of these films are going down, even in the honorable mentions here, some of these are going to go down as like my favorite movies of all time. Like these are just really phenomenal movies, and The Report is no exception. This is another 10 out of 10. Adam Driver, so phenomenal here. Annette Bening, John Hamm, a whole cast of just great actors. And this is a movie, like, if it works on you, it'll probably piss you off by the end. Because this is not just a tidy it up sort of story, like true story. This is a deplorable act, like, by the government. And it doesn't matter what political side you lean towards, whether it be liberal or conservative. This is a disgusting... and clearly this is more on the liberal side of the politicians. However, I feel it holds both sides accountable for this. Like it doesn't sugarcoat the fact that it took Obama quite a while to release this torture report. And you know, because like everybody's so obsessed with winning, I gotta win in the polls. You know, I can't let this like slant people's decision of me. This is a very important film. This is probably the most important film of the year. And I know when a lot of people say shit like that, it's like hyperbole, but I genuinely think this is a very important film to see for people, especially if they're getting into politics of any kind. I mean, this is just a very, like, still a relevant tragedy in our history. You know, like, I'm a Canadian myself, as you can see by that thing in the background there, but you know, this affects us all. This affects the world, you know, and like this is something that we should be ashamed about as a society. Like it's really embarrassing, the fact that we let this happen and nothing good came out of it, you know. So like this film again will probably piss you off like it did me, but in the end I'm so happy I got to see and experience this movie and to learn a thing or two about the shit that the government tries to mask from us, like this torture report here, because this is really devastating stuff, and it's probably the most devastating movie of the year. I mean, it still shocks me, like, thinking back to it, like, about how the CIA tried to screw this guy over and all this shit that they tried to do to hide this from the government. I mean, it's truly disgusting stuff that we're talking about here, that they got away with, killing people, torturing people, like, and gaining nothing from it. It's just really a sad, embarrassing stain on our history, and we should watch movies like this and praise movies like this for showing us of why we should never do shit like this ever again. Never again. Anyhow, moving on, we got another true story film, although I feel like this one's, and again, The Report is a 10 out of 10. For the next film, honorable mention, we're talking about The Irishman. Now, this is a film, I was one of the few people that got to see this in theaters. I thought this was a great movie in theaters, if a bit over long. I think I gave it a 8 out of 10, if not a 9 out of 10. I can't remember when I initially saw it in theaters, because it's a 3.5 hour fucking movie. I mean, and no intermissions in the theater that I saw it in. Like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Guys, when you got a movie that's literally over 3 hours, like bordering on 4, like, you gotta have an intermission, because I can't sit on my ass for nearly 4 hours straight, especially like with like and mind you, I got to the screening late, so I didn't see any trailers or whatnot before this. However, if I did, that would have been literally 4 fucking hours sitting there. That's ridiculous. You got some video games, some full-priced video games that are literally just 4 hours of gameplay. I mean, that's absurd to me. That's just absurd. A 4-hour movie without intermissions. That's nuts. So initially I gave it, like, I think I was leaning more to an 8 out of 10 just because it's so fucking long. As good as the movie is, I mean, the last half hour, I'm kind of agreeing with what Terry Gilliam had to say about it. The last half hour just drags on so much that once we, spoiler, but this is based off true story, so get that through your head. I mean, don't be triggered by me spoiling The Irishman, oh! But, at the end when Jimmy Hoffa dies, I mean that's kind of the end of the movie, you know. And Terry Gilliam is a great filmmaker, by the way, and he was saying that, you know, basically we stop caring once Jimmy's dead, and that couldn't be further from the. I mean, that couldn't be closer to the truth. I mean, it is so true. It's it's crazy. I'm finally trying to figure out a way to praise that properly, but I think I did the first time. Yeah, it's still a great movie. In fact, the second time I watched it when it arrived on Netflix, I think I liked it even more. So I think I would lean closer to a 9 out of 10, even though I still feel like this is a super long movie, and I don't. And I feel like I will watch it again at some point, because I was actually really excited to see it again at home, because right when I paused it was literally at the hour 45-minute mark, around the scene where Pacino and De Niro are sitting with that what's the guy's name? Big Tony, Little Tony, the guy with the glasses, and it's that whole conversation, the like, what do you mean, you people? Like, it's after their encounter in prison, like, and they're sitting around, and then they get into the fight again, of course. Like, a lot of hot heads in this movie, but this movie's great. De Niro, one of his best performances. I think people are kind of overrating Al Pacino's performance here. I think he's fine, but I don't get why the hell he's getting supporting actor nominations along with Joe Pesci. I think Joe Pesci is clearly the standout here. Like, in my opinion, this is Joe Pesci's best performance ever. I mean, this is one of the best performances of the year, probably top 3 for me personally, if not at least top 5, because there's some really stunning performances throughout this year. But Joe Pesci really steals the show here, and every time he's on screen, like, he has this scene where he walks into his house and he's got a bloody shirt on, and he walks into his wife, and he's just got this like vacant stare on his face, and it's so chilling. I mean, just like that scene alone was basically like, yep, this guy needs to get a nomination for supporting actor. Whereas Al Pacino is sort of playing Al Pacino, like it's sort of cringeworthy, in fact, in certain scenes. I mean, I love Al Pacino, but in the scene where he's like yelling solidarity, solidarity, I found that scene to be kind of cringeworthy for some reason. I don't know why per se, but I just found shit like that to be like not like Jimmy Hoffa, but more akin to who Al Pacino seems to be in real life, like over dramatic theatrical type performance. Still, this is a great movie, 9 out of 10. Next movie, we got One Cut of the Dead. This is a really brilliant movie. I don't want to talk too much about this movie because talking too much about it would kind of spoil the surprise of this movie. So all I'd have to say is definitely check this one out. I sort of watched this movie off the recommendation that Jay from Red Letter Media gave it. He said this was, I think, his best movie of the year, or his favorite movie of the year. And I definitely agree with him. This is one of the best of the year, one of my favorites of the year, and a very delightful, funny, original take on the zombie genre. And this is a brilliant film. Like, the second half of this film especially makes it well worth sitting through, because for the first half you might be like, what the hell is this? But stick with it, and I think you'll really, really appreciate what these guys are doing here. This is a really wonderful film, and definitely one of the best of the year. Speaking of, and for One Cut of the Dead, I'll give this film a I'll give this a 9 out of 10, just like I gave The Irishman. I so want to give it a 10 out of 10, but like, admittedly, that first half, half hour, 40 minutes or so, like, was kind of like, I was going, is this it? Like, this isn't the whole movie, is it? However, once it's done with that section, and you'll know what I mean when you see it, or if you've seen it, it gets really interesting, and that's really the stuff that I loved about it, and that's where I was like, all right, I'm all in, because then all the puzzle pieces start to connect, and you really And I'm curious to see it again with the second half of the film in mind, because it's one of those movies where if you watch it again, it'll probably get way better with time. And I can't praise these actors and these filmmakers enough. This is a brilliant, brilliant effort. Brilliant. Wow, really great movie. I mean, 9 out of 10. I mean, I can't praise this movie enough. It's so close to a 10 out of 10. So close, but I can't quite do it. Not yet. Maybe after a second viewing, it'd be a 10 out of 10, but so close. It's 9 out of 10. This damn near actually made the top 10 list for me, even though I'm sort of on the border between 9 and 10. This damn near made my top 10. Anyhow, next film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Right off the bat, I think I'd give this movie a 9 out of 10 as well. Initially, I was thinking 8 out of 10, but really my only problem with this film is that I hate the depiction of Bruce Lee in this film. And I've talked to some friends, or at least some friends, like pointed it out to me on Facebook, how like Tarantino's response to it was like, oh, well, like I heard that's how he was in real life. It's like, well, you know, I've heard a lot more in the contrary. I mean, Bruce Lee has always been known to be a very wise man. And if he ever, like, went around being belligerent and cocky like that, he'd be doing it out of, like, joking around. Like, he wouldn't be doing it seriously like how they depicted in this film. So that really pissed me off about this film. Like that fucking like pissed me off, because I like the actor that they cast as Bruce Lee. I thought they did a good job casting him, even though obviously he's not as jacked as Bruce Lee. Like I like the actor. Like at least when he had the glasses and the coat on, like I thought like, okay, this guy, like in quick shots, like this guy could really pull off a Bruce Lee really well with that look. And also the depiction of Sharon Tate, I mean, like, I almost, like, kind of hated her inclusion in this film, because I think this is Margot Robbie's worst performance. I mean, I think she's just bad here. I mean, like, I know why she's playing it like this, I guess. Like, but she just seems so stupid and such an airhead, and it seems like it just, I don't know, like, it was cute. I mean, I guess, like, but it threw me out of the movie, her performance. Like, whenever she pops on screen and she's watching herself in the movie, and yet it's clearly the real life Sharon Tate. I mean, that sort of just, like, took me out of the movie. Like, at certain points, they kept cutting back to it, and I wish her scenes were just cut out of the movie, because then it would have just been a sturdy, like, 2.5 hour long movie, and we could have got her as Sharon Tate by the end of it. Whereas, like, with all her scenes, I feel like she really contributes nothing. She sort of just flaunts and dances around, and like I don't really care about her. I mean, I'm saddened by what happens to the real life Sharon Tate and the real life people that died in the real life tragedy, but you know, like, it's no excuse for being absolutely needless, in my opinion. I can see why she's in the movie. However, I'd love to see a version of this film where her scenes are cut out, to where we can just focus on Leo and Brad Pitt, because they are staggeringly fucking amazing in this. I love these two in this movie. There's a scene with Leo and this actress, like, and he's reading a book, and this scene, like, I've never cried, at least from what I know, during a Tarantino film, and never did I ever think that I would. But there's something about this scene and Leo's delivery of it, and along with the child actress here, who's really brilliant. I love all the talk she's getting of getting supporting actress nominations. I think that'd be amazing, because she's one of the best child actors I've ever seen in any movie. But this scene, like, there's something about it, and Leo's delivery and her delivery alike, that was just so rich and authentic. I mean, it's the best scene in the movie, in my opinion, along with the scene where he's like he's doing the scene with her and he throws her down and stuff. Like, there's so many great scenes in this, and the whole ending involving Brad Pitt and the dog. I mean, This is one of Tarantino's best films. It's not my personal favorite. I think my favorite of his will always be Jackie Brown, just because that's the movie in his catalog that does not feel like a Tarantino film. So I really love it for that. And like, yeah, but this film is so good, and that ending, oh, just gets your blood boiling, and like just like I remember being on the edge of my seat when I was watching it here, just like yeah. I don't think a movie had that sort of ending for me as this one did this year. This movie had quite possibly my favorite ending of the year. I don't know, but we'll see the further I go along here. Anyhow, last honorable mentions in the longest honorable mentions list that I've ever heard on YouTube, probably. I mean, and what we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 films here total in the honorable mentions. So this is basically like a top 20 list at this point. Last film I'll mention here is Avengers Endgame, of course. I mean, what else is there to say about this film? Probably my favorite of the Avengers movies. I mean, as much as I loved the first Avengers as well as Infinity War, and I think Infinity War is structurally a better film than this, the fact that they pulled off this ending so brilliantly, in my opinion, just blew me away, because I was so worried about this film. I almost didn't even want to anticipate this film, like with how much I loved Infinity War and how much I knew that these directors would do good with this material. There was something about it where I was just so nervous. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't think they're going to pull it off. But they did, and I really loved this film. It made me cry like probably a handful or more amount of times. I mean, just the scene of Tony Stark handing Cap back his shield. I mean, like because there's history with these characters, and the fact that this feels like the ending, you know, of a series, like this feels like a true finale, like is really something special with the amount of movies that we've had, and the amount of time we've spent with these characters like Thor and Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Hulk. I mean, like all these guys. This is just a lovely tribute to these characters and the comic book fans alike. I mean, I really feel bad if people weren't enthralled by this movie, because so many people were touched by this movie, and I really feel sad for the people that were Scrooges towards this movie, that just were picking it apart, you know, and I don't want to dive too much into it, but like some of the critics, I mean, just the amount of criticisms I heard, like going, oh, this movie's overrated, blah blah blah. It's like I get it, but like if you were keeping up with these films from the get-go, starting with Iron Man, working all the way to this, how could you not be satisfied with how it ends? At least, like there's so many great sequences in this that just, what a great movie, and what a great way to end the series. I mean, admittedly, I was kind of shocked that there was like this big epic final battle. I almost wish that this film didn't have a final battle. However, that's where some of the best moments come from, and the whole like finale, like involving Iron Man, is like and Captain America alike. I mean, some of the most like epic moments of the year, and some of the most emotionally heartbreaking moments of the year as well, and just satisfying closure. I mean, this is the way to end a series. Like this is definitely the return of the king of superhero movies. And if superhero movies in general weren't so fucking taboo, at least to these award shows, then this would be getting the amount of award nominations as something like literally Return of the King. Like, remember, that movie won Best Picture in 2003. So the fact that everybody's just shuffling this movie aside to make way for like other movies that are probably better, like as movies, but the fact that this isn't getting praised for the crowd-pleasing delight that it is kind of baffling to me. And it's about time that award shows wake up to movies like Avengers Endgame and see that everybody, well, mostly everybody seems to love a film like this, you know, and you know, I feel like Avengers Endgame, as much as people like, and as much as I love the concept of Joker, that film was a slight disappointment for me. I was expecting it to be a 10 out of 10 perfect movie with the trailers and how awesome it looked. But that movie was like closer to a 7 or an 8 out of 10, whereas Avengers Endgame is a 9 out of 10 for me. Because it totally took me aback how much I was crying throughout, and like how much I genuinely like felt was at risk in the movie for these characters. Like, and like there are so many decisions that were like, you know, and some moments here and there, like some of the comedy doesn't land, blah blah blah, but that's typical with these sort of movies. I find this movie is just, it's so well done, and you could tell there's so much care put into this. Like even the end credits with the actors' signatures, like I thought that was a brilliant way of closing out this franchise. And like I'm sort of done with Marvel movies now. I mean, like I sort of watched Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain America, or I mean Captain Marvel, out of obligation in a way, out of just seeing as many movies as I possibly could this year. But those movies, I mean, they just pale in comparison, at least to me. I mean, those movies are nowhere near as fun as this was. And this had so much riding on it, and so many people to please, that it's really amazing the fact that they pulled this off just as well as they did Infinity War, if not better, if not worse. But the fact that they pulled it off in this regard at all is really something worth praising. And I'd sing this movie's praise all damn day long. Avengers Endgame, 9 out of 10. One of the best of the year in my opinion. Moving on, finally, to the official top 10 favorite movies of mine of 2019. Alright, let's start it off with number 10. Knives Out. This movie, wow, wow, wow. I have not seen a murder mystery like this done so well in so long. This might be my favorite murder mystery. I mean, this had me howling with laughter. This had me on the edge of my seat. I loved the performances here. I think Daniel Craig, probably his best performance. I mean, I want to say his best performance is as Bond in Casino Royale. But by God, that accent he does in this is so delightful. I mean, I had the biggest smile on my face watching this movie, and it's only PG-13. I mean, I was really shocked by that. I thought this would be an R-rated movie just because of the subject matter. But it feels like one of those movies that you could watch with your parents and really have a damn good time. Like this was a damn good time. Just the reaction to this movie is overwhelmingly positive, and you know, any person that wants to trash talk Rian Johnson after making The Last Jedi, after seeing this film, they should just shut the hell up with all that hate and negativity, because, you know, blame The Last Jedi on Disney. Blame it on Kathleen Kennedy, whoever. Don't blame the guy that was hired to do a job and to make the film that he wanted to make. You know, like, and the studio let him make it, and that was their fault. So blame them for letting him make what he wanted to, because he makes what he wants to here, and he knocks it out of the fucking park. This is one of the best follow-ups, quite possibly the best follow-up to a critically panned movie, or at least panned by audiences, overwhelmingly panned by audiences. Like this is like a home fucking run. Like this is a masterful film from a guy that I've genuinely come to respect after I was on the hate train for so fucking long after what he did with The Last Jedi. I look back on that movie now, like I mentioned at the start of this video, I look back on that movie now like, wow, like I'm actually happy that I saw it, because I got to talk about it with people. We got passionate about Star Wars, even though it got too hateful with some people, and some people were outright racist, sexist, you name it. but like, you know, talking with the people that you could tell were genuine fans of of that franchise about that film was genuinely compelling. I mean, and you know, as long as you didn't get overwhelmingly negative about it, like I still talk with my neighbor about that film because it's so much fun. Like either hating on that film or talking about why you love it. Like I love hearing people tell me they love The Last Jedi because I sure as shit didn't. Yet I love hearing why people love that film because like it sort of opens up a new perspective for me, and I love films like that. That's why Rise of Skywalker is so mediocre, because it's so middling and pedestrian. I mean, it just, like, I literally forgot most of that film as soon as I walked out of the theater, whereas like I watched The Last Jedi 2 years ago and I could almost damn near play that movie back perfectly in my mind because it just baffled me how bad the movie was, and yet it's compelling in its badness, at least to me. So again, Knives Out, this is a perfect 10 out of 10 movie. All these movies from here on out are going to be 10 out of 10, so just to refrain from being overwhelmingly redundant, I'm just going to say that right off the hop. So definitely check this in theaters while it's still there. Next film, number 9, we got The Farewell. This is a beautiful movie. Awkwafina, if she doesn't get a Oscar nomination for this for Best Actress, there's something seriously wrong with the Oscars. And yeah, and along with Lupita Nyong'o, or I think that's how her name's pronounced, but that movie Us, I didn't see that movie, but I saw like some clips of her performance in that, and I really like think that that looks like a wonderful performance, and I've seen enough of it to go, okay, because I wasn't interested in seeing Us. I mean, it just seemed like it just sounded so stupid to me, and it's not my type of movie. I didn't care to see Get Out either. Like, just movies like that with a social message to them, I never really like jump on board to those, unless they're like under the radar. Like, I hate it when like they're like hugely praised, like, oh my god, you gotta see this like will bring up a discussion. I mean, I hate movies like that. But anyhow, off that Jordan Peele topic, number 9 again, we got The Farewell here. This is a beautiful movie. This had me in tears by the end, and not in a way where it's beating you over the head, but in a way that's subtle, like, and a way that makes you think about your own family and your own time on this planet, and like the time we should be sharing with one another, but we refuse. And it's just such a beautiful movie, and I don't have too much to say about it, but like, definitely check this one out, because I feel like this is one of the best of the year, and it's kind of getting like brushed under the rug in a way, I sort of feel. But I really hope that the award shows, like especially the Oscars, they give attention to this movie, especially Awkwafina, and I love that name. I'd love it if she won Best Actress for this, just because I'd love to hear. And the Academy Award goes to Awkwafina, and then they play a commercial of Awkwafina water in the background, or like right after she wins, it'd be an Awkwafina commercial. But I don't know, I think of stupid shit like that sometimes. But I love her performance. In my opinion, she's probably got the best female performance of this year, in my opinion. I mean, it's a cross between her and Scarlett Johansson, which we'll get to in a second. But I love this movie, The Farewell. Definitely check it out. And speaking of Scarlett Johansson, number 8, we got Marriage Story. Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson. This is a wonderful movie. And again, like The Farewell, this movie had me. Probably the hardest cry I've cried all year was, well, actually, I might have to take that back a little later, but this one of the hardest cries during a movie that I've had all year. And I sound like a real baby in this video. I know, I'm sorry guys, but like, a lot of movies really got to me this year. And those are my favorite type of movies that get to me on an emotional level. For instance, I saw, literally just today with my mom, I watched A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Tom Hanks. And whereas I was expecting to literally cry in front of my mom, like sitting right next to her, like I was expecting to cry during that film, I somehow didn't, because it didn't connect to me that much. Like, I still like the movie, but I didn't love it to the point where I'm literally crying like my eyes out. It almost had me. Tom Hanks almost had me at certain points, but the documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor, was such a more engaging and emotional experience for me that A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood just feels like really unnecessary. Yet it's still a good movie. It's a 7 out of 10. Wouldn't make my honorable mentions list, and I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but it'll definitely stick with me as a good movie and a great performance from Tom Hanks. But Marriage Story, this is like such a brilliant film, brilliantly written, brilliantly acted. Somebody that I want to bring up that nobody's bringing up is Ray Liotta in this film. After watching The Irishman, I watched this film basically right after that, and Ray Liotta in this is so fucking awesome. Like, I mean, like, he's great as this lawyer. I felt like I was watching a mob movie whenever he popped on screen, but in the best possible way. I mean, like, he's just so, like, vulgar and, like, straight to the point and, like, such an asshole, but, like, in a good way. I mean, fuck, like, oh man, he's so good in this. I fucking love Ray Liotta. I love Laura Dern. I love all these actors and actresses in here. I'd be so happy with Adam Driver or Scarlett Johansson, if not both of them, winning Best Actor, Actress, respectively. They're both phenomenal in this, and they both like deliver arguably their best performances of their career, in my opinion. This is a really wonderful movie. Anyhow, speaking of wonderful movie, number 7, really underrated movie, wonderful as well. We got the number 7, The Art of Self-Defense. This movie is wonderful, man. I mean, Jesse Eisenberg is a certified badass to me now after watching this movie. This movie kicks ass. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, this movie was a cross between Fight Club, Napoleon Dynamite, and something else, like Office Space. Like, it's a combination of those 3 movies, yet it's so far different than those movies. Like, it's tough to explain this movie, and I don't want to explain it too much because I'd spoil it. And I really think going in blind to this film is the best way to experience, because the only thing I knew about it was the poster. And I like Jesse Eisenberg a lot as an actor, so I'm like, oh, I'll give this movie a chance. Once it came out, I downloaded it and watched it, and I'm like, okay, I love this. Like, I think it was the first movie I saw of this year, aside from Avengers Endgame, that I really felt was one of my favorites of the year. Like, was a perfect 10 out of 10. Like, whereas Avengers was 9 out of 10, and I knew that film, I loved it. I knew that I loved it. This film, like, it was just a step above that. Like, this film will stick with me for quite a while. I mean, like, the whole climax to this film, and the actress here, and the supporting actor that plays the sensei in this, like, every actor in this fits their role to a T, and it's so fucking good. I love this movie. I loved this movie. This was the first movie of 2019 that I genuinely loved, that I genuinely wanted to recommend to as many people as possible, and you gotta watch this movie. Give it a shot, you guys. I really think you'll love The Art of Self-Defense with Jesse Eisenberg. Give it a watch. Number 6, I'm gonna try to plow through these because I notice I'm running out of battery here. Number 6, Dolomite Is My Name. Eddie Murphy here. Boom. Phenomenal. I haven't seen Uncut Gems yet, but I'd be so happy with guys like Eddie Murphy, Adam Sandler, Antonio Banderas, guys like that, Adam Driver winning the Oscar. It's funny because I started, like, initially, like, before this year even begun, once the trailers for Joker started to arrive. Now I got an eyelash in my eye. Oh, that's great. Oh, brutal. So yeah, once I started seeing trailers for Joker, I'm like, oh, immediately I want Joaquin Phoenix to win Best Actor. But now it's funny, it's the opposite. Now I'm almost, like, rooting against Joaquin Phoenix because I want to see one of these other awesome actors win it. You know, I love so many movies this year. I mean, it's tough going against, like, one or the other because there's so many wonderful movies that came out this year, and Dolomite Is My Name's one of them. I mean, the last scene to this, boy, oh boy, the last scene, it really moved me, and really showcases how wonderful Eddie Murphy is as an actor and how much I missed him as an actor. I mean, I just love this guy. He's a master, and it was so great seeing him back on SNL, and it's so great just seeing him back in a wonderful movie like this. Like, this is how you make a comeback and stick the landing. This is a wonderful movie, and I think it's got a really positive message, especially about like body type. Like there's a plus size like woman in this who's like, after a certain point you can't help but view her as just a beautiful woman. Like I was genuinely moved by this film, and it really made me appreciate not only Rudy Ray Moore and want to seek out his movies and watch his movies, but it really inspired me, like as a aspiring filmmaker, screenwriter. It makes me want to go out there and just do it, you know, because that's the message of this film. You know, just go out there, do it. People may root against you, but that's fine. As long as you stick to your guns, you'll be all right in the end. And this film's a wonderful film with a positive message and a fantastic cast. Wesley Snipes is amazing in this too. I mean, everybody is phenomenal in this. Everybody's singing Jordan Peele's praises now, but I think Keegan Michael, I forget how to pronounce his name, but Key in this is so good. I mean, all the actors is so good in this. I wish I remember the actress's name in this, but shit, I don't. But she's great as well. This movie's wonderful, man. I can't recommend this movie enough to people. Like, it's definitely R-rated. It's got some real persuasive language, and it's got some real surprising sequences of nudity throughout, like, which kind of like, whoa, I was surprised to just see that out of nowhere. But it's so well done, and I love this movie so much. Dolomite's my name is number 6. Number 5, top 5 now. Number 5 is Parasite. Wow. Wow. This is one of the best of the year. This is probably the best film of the year. Like, easily the best film of the year. It's not my personal favorite, but it's easily one of the best of the year. And it's probably the best film of the year. And it deserves to win all the Oscars, especially Best Director for Bong Joon-ho. This is masterful stuff, man. This is almost like a new genre of film we're talking about here. This is amazing. And the actors, especially the actress that plays the daughter in The Poor Family, she is so fucking good and hot and gorgeous. Oh my god, she commands the screen. And how the fuck people aren't giving her Best Supporting Actress nomination consideration is just mind-boggling to me. If she's not getting considered for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars this year, fuck the Oscars. I mean, this probably is my second favorite performance of the year. Like, just her. Like, she is amazing in this. Like, as great as this film is, she was the one that, like, blew me away, along with the director himself and how this film is structured and the set of that house and, like, how the story's told and edited. I mean, everything about this movie is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal film that stuck with me and got better the more I thought about it. Parasite, everybody's singing its praises now, and it definitely deserves all the praise it got. This is one of the best of the decade. This is a phenomenal film. Speaking of phenomenal film, we're getting into some really underrated ones here now, guys. Number 4 is a film I just watched literally on Christmas Day with my mom. It's called KLAUS. This is the best animated film of the year and one of the best animated films of the decade. Great voice cast, including Jason Schwartzman as well as J.K. Simmons as the titular. I want to call him Santa Claus, but I think he's just Claus in this. This is a brilliant retelling of the Santa Claus mythos. Like, is that a thing? I mean, this is a brilliant retelling of Santa Claus in general. I mean, and like just some of the, like, for instance, there's a sequence involving a sled with flying reindeer, flying sled or what have you. And that scene, like, and the payoff to that, like, and how that happens is so funny. Like, it's one of the funniest scenes of the year. Like, it made me literally laugh out loud, and I was just baffled with how smart and intelligent this movie was. This is going to be a holiday staple for me from here on out. This could quite possibly be my favorite Christmas movie. I'm really shocked to be saying that. Like, especially with films like Bad Santa and Elf out there. I mean, and we watched Christmas Vacation as well, and that's a classic for around Christmas time. But this movie, it's so wonderful, and there are some scenes that like got the waterworks going. And I'm sitting here with my mom, just like hiding, like put my arm against my head, like, oh God, don't see me like this. And I love this film, and I love this animation style. Definitely watch this, even though Christmas is all said and done now. We're walking into the new year. You could watch this film any day and be satisfied with it. Definitely check out KLAUS, and it's my number 4 film of the year. Moving on to number 3, Plus One. This is probably the most underrated film of the year. This is one of the best, if not the best, romantic comedy that I have possibly ever seen. Like, this is literally shocking to me how people aren't singing more praise towards this film. I mean, Jack Quaid and the actress here, I don't know her name, but she's wonderful. I mean, these two lead actors, they are phenomenal. They have the best chemistry of any on-screen couple, like, of the year. And they're not even a couple throughout the film. They're just friends, and like the film progresses onwards from there. It's kind of typical in certain parts, but it has a way of subverting genre tropes that I thought was really well done and brilliant. Like, this is a brilliant film, and it made me laugh. I remember watching the movie Booksmart before this, and whereas Booksmart's getting all this praise for being so original and so funny, I thought that movie was a straight up ripoff of fucking Superbad. And it wasn't anywhere near as funny as I thought Blockers was from a few years back, if not last year. So whereas Booksmart was like a 6 out of 10, Plus One was a genuine classic to me, a 10 out of 10, perfect film. I mean, like, I love these two lead actors, and I loved all the supporting characters throughout. Like, none of them got on my nerves like a movie like Booksmart did. Booksmart, like, the first 10 to 15 minutes of that nonsense, like, just, like, it made my mind, like, go crazy. I'm like, I damn near shut off the movie, because it was so loud and obnoxious, and these characters were so fake and phony. I mean, I was just like, fuck this movie. And I almost shut it off, but thankfully, once it settled down and got into more quieter scenes, I started to like it more. Like, once they show us the parents, and there's a scene involving a pizza delivery driver that had me howling. That's the funniest scene in Booksmart, in my opinion. But Plus One, I mean, this movie deserves so much more praise than it's getting, and I could not recommend this film enough. This is one of those films that I will be revisiting again and again and again, and just like KLAUS and Parasite, these top 5 films for me will be classics, and I had a tough time actually ranking these top 5, especially because I genuinely really adore these films, and I think more people should be seeking them out and really enjoying them. Probably not as much as I do, but like I think you'll genuinely get a kick out of Plus One, which is my number 3 film. Number 2, and I didn't do this intentionally, guys, so please forgive me. I watched this just about like whenever it came out on Netflix first, which was like maybe just a couple of days ago or last week. So this is relatively new to me, but my the reaction I got from this film was just amazing. And this film's called The Two Popes. It's with Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony Hopkins. It might be Sir Jonathan Pryce as well. I'm not sure. Sir Jonathan, that has a nice ring to it, don't it? But yeah, the Two Popes, I adore this film. This movie, I was talking about crying my eyes out during either Marriage Story or Toy Story 4 earlier, but The Two Popes, this movie genuinely shocked me. I did not think for a second as soon as I heard about this film, as soon as I saw the trailers and posters and shit, as soon as I heard about it, I wrote it off. Like, I'm like, this looks like Oscar bait. This reminds me of the fucking King's Speech, where I liked the King's Speech, but I felt that the King's Speech was one of those movies that got so overrated. You know, and ironically now, looking back on it, I mean, I think that film kind of is overrated, because look at what the director has done after that. He did another remake of Les Mis, and this year he made the most critically panned movie arguably of the year, which is Cats. I mean, you fucking make a movie like Cats, where we're in the same year as films like The Fanatic, you know, and Cats is being ranked as the worst film of the year. I mean, like come on, like at least The Fanatic seems like a funny bad film, whereas Cats is just like, what in the fuck were they thinking? And it's clearly just made for money too. It's clearly made because the musical was a success. What a fucking disgrace. So that director went on to win all these awards, and whereas I thought this was going to be another King's Speech, where that movie, in my opinion, was rather overrated for its time, this movie, wow, this movie is one of a kind. This movie genuinely baffled me with how beautifully told it was, brilliantly shot, symbolic, just like so many positive feelings I got from this movie. I just absolutely loved these two actors in the lead. By the end of it, I was literally crying just at the notion of them like saying goodbye to one another. I mean, they just developed such a beautiful bond in this film, and their friendship. I mean, it's these actors. They're it's almost getting to me again now. I mean, these actors are so good in this movie, and it kind of breaks my heart the fact that this movie's getting shuffled under the rug, you know, in a sense. I mean, I bet it's going to get a lot of award nominations, but it kind of upsets me, the fact that I think a lot of people are going to write this off like I did, you know, and I think you could get a lot out of a film like this. It has a positive message, and it's, yeah, this damn near, just thinking about it, it's making me tear up again. I mean, this damn near overtook my #1 spot. Like, this was so close to being my #1 film of the year. Like, and maybe if I got to sit on it for another month or two, it probably would be my favorite of the year, because, like, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love these two in this movie. I mean, wow, I'm shocked. I am so... Like, I am shocked by my reaction to this film. This is one of the best films I've ever seen. Two of the best performers of all time. These two actors here, magnificent. Two of their best performances, and wow, really wonderful film this is. But finally, #1 film. And speaking of two wonderful performances here, we got #1 film of the year for me is without a doubt The Lighthouse. I mean, well, with some doubt, but however, like, I think after I make this video, I'll be pretty firm in my placement with these top two films. The Lighthouse, this is a film, speaking of being shuffled under the rug, I think people are shuffling this film under the rug when it comes to the awards ceremonies. I think Robert Pattinson and especially Willem Dafoe here give their career best performances, and it's a shame that they might get overlooked at the Oscars when they're doing such phenomenal work here. Robert Eggers as well as a director here. This is a brilliant, this is a masterpiece. I mean, I've heard a lot of critics sing this movie's praises, and in my opinion, it deserves even more so. This is one of the best films I've ever seen, easily, and I just loved it, and I'd highly recommend you check it out. I mean, that's all I'm gonna say about it. Willem Dafoe gives my favorite performance of the year, and definitely check it out, guys. Anyhow, that's it. My battery's flashing now. That's enough of me. Thank you for watching my top 10 video. I'll see you guys in the new year. Have a great one. Take care, everybody.